The day my daughter looked up at me, eyes wide and voice trembling, and asked, "Dad, do they hate books?" was a moment I realized something in our neighborhood was deeply broken. That question didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a small wooden box at the edge of our lawn, a box painted in rainbow colors, filled with paperbacks and comic books. A box we built together as a family, full of joy, hope, and stories meant to be shared. But to our HOA, it wasn't joy. It wasn't kindness. It was an unauthorized structure, an unsightly clutter, a violation worthy of fines, threats, and harassment. And it set off a battle that would divide neighbors, attract news crews, and eventually topple a man who ruled our community with an iron fist. This is a story of how a little free library turned into a war zone, and how, in the end, a painted wooden box defeated an HOA. My name is Daniel Turner. My wife, Claire, and I live in Oakwood Estates, one of those picture-perfect neighborhoods where every lawn looks copy-pasted from a catalog and every house could be mistaken for the one next to it. We've got 2 kids, Sophie, 10 years old, a dreamer with her nose always in a book, and Liam, 7, whose world revolves around comic books and superheroes. Books have always been our thing. They're stacked on nightstands, crammed into shelves, spilling across coffee tables. Sophie devours novels faster than we can buy them. Liam is just discovering the magic of reading, and his laugh when he finds a funny page is infectious. One sunny spring afternoon, Sophie came home from school nearly bouncing with excitement. Her teacher had told the class about something called little free libraries. She explained it breathlessly. Tiny wooden boxes where neighbors could take a book or leave a book. Her eyes shone. "Dad, can we build one? Right here? Then kids could read whenever they want." How could I say no? That weekend, we dug out scrap wood from the garage. I measured, cut, and hammered while Liam proudly handed me nails like they were priceless treasure. Sophie painted the panels bright blue and yellow, insisting the roof be rainbow-striped. Claire lettered the sign with her steady hand. "Little free library. Take a book, leave a book." When we anchored it near the sidewalk, Sophie filled it with her prized chapter books. Charlotte's Web, The Secret Garden, even a battered Harry Potter. Liam contributed a stack of superhero comics. Claire tucked in a few classics she loved as a kid. It stood there, colorful and inviting, like a little treasure chest waiting to be opened. The response was immediate. The very next morning, a little girl I didn't recognize stopped on her way to school. She opened the door, gasped, and pulled out Charlotte's Web. She hugged it to her chest and skipped down the sidewalk. That afternoon, a boy swapped an old comic for a mystery novel. Parents smiled and thanked us as they walked by. Our mail carrier laughed when he spotted it. "I'll have to grab a book for my daughter," he said. Sophie checked it every morning. "Dad, look. Someone left a new book," she'd say, clutching a donated fantasy novel. Liam boasted his friends. "We have our own library." It was magic. Children laughed together as they browsed. Neighbors lingered to chat. People who'd never spoken before now stopped to talk about books. Our yard had become a little hub of community. But in neighborhoods like ours, magic never lasts long. Not under the watchful eyes of the HOA. 1 week later, I came home to find a plain envelope taped to our door. My stomach sank the moment I saw the HOA letterhead. The notice read, "This is a formal violation. An unauthorized structure has been erected on your property in the form of a little free library. This violates HOA regulations. Remove immediately or face a $250 fine." I stared, stunned. Unauthorized structure? It was 2 feet wide, painted by kids. Claire read over my shoulder and scoffed. "They're calling a children's library an illegal structure? This is absurd." But absurdity is the HOA's specialty. The next morning, I called the HOA office. The receptionist's tone was polished but cold. "Sir, the rules are clear. Any structure must be pre-approved. Yours was not. Remove it." I asked to speak with the president, Richard Green. Everyone knew Richard. Retired corporate manager. Always striding around with a clipboard like a king inspecting his domain. He lived for the rules. People whispered his nickname, the dictator of Oakwood. When he finally called me back, his voice oozed condescension. "Mr. Turner, I don't doubt your intentions, but rules are rules. If we allow your unapproved box, what's next? Chicken coops? Storage sheds? It's a slippery slope." I argued. I told him it was for kids, for reading, for joy. He scoffed. "If children want books, they can go to the public library. Your box is unsightly. It must go." Unsightly. That's what he called Sophie's rainbow-painted roof. That night, I sat Sophie down and explained. Her lip trembled. "Dad, do they hate books?" My chest ached. I had no answer, and that was just the beginning. I refused to take it down. Not after Sophie's question. Not after seeing kids' smiles. So instead of removing the little free library, we added more books. I even built a second shelf inside. We stocked it with picture books, thrillers, and even cookbooks. If the HOA thought they could bully us into silence, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Days later, another envelope appeared on our door. The fine had jumped from $250 to $500. A week later, $750. Then came a flood of new violation notices. Suddenly, our trash can was visible from the street. Our lawn was overgrown, even though I'd mowed 2 days before. Claire's flower pots were excessive and not in harmony with the neighborhood aesthetic. It was clear we were being targeted. And then came the moment that made my blood boil. One afternoon, Sophie was outside restocking the library with books when Richard Green himself marched up, clipboard in hand, eyes narrowed. He towered over her and barked, "This is illegal. Tell your father it's coming down." My 10-year-old daughter burst into tears and ran inside. Claire held her, furious. He yelled at her, Daniel, at a child. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about a wooden box. This was about power, and we weren't backing down. Not everyone agreed with us. A neighbor 2 houses down, Margaret, known around the block as the HOA Karen, stopped Claire one afternoon. With a smug smile, she said, "Rules exist for a reason. If you get to keep your box, then what's to stop someone from putting a junkyard sculpture in their yard? Think about property values." Claire's eyes flashed. It's a library for kids. Property values don't matter when children are discovering books. But Margaret wasn't alone. A few neighbors muttered that we were troublemakers. Some crossed the street rather than walk past us. Whispers spread that we were trying to stir drama, but others rallied quietly. Parents slipped notes of encouragement into our mailbox. One read, "My son borrowed his first book from your library. Thank you. Don't give up." Kids left drawings inside the box. Rainbows, hearts, stick figures reading books. Sophie taped them inside like protective charms. One evening, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "If the library is magic, maybe it can fight back." Her hope kept me going. The HOA's letters grew harsher. They claimed the library posed a safety hazard. They threatened legal action. They warned of placing a lien on our home. Richard patrolled more aggressively, walking past our house twice a day with his clipboard, sometimes stop and take photos of the library like it was a crime scene. Claire was unraveling. One night she said, "Maybe we should just take it down, for Sophie's sake. I don't want her scared every time she sees him." But Sophie overheard. She burst into tears. "No. Please, Dad, don't let them take it." I promised her we wouldn't, even though I wasn't sure how we'd win. Amid the harassment, the library continued to thrive. Kids stopped after school, laughing as they traded books. One boy left a Pokemon card tucked between the pages of a comic as a bonus prize. A teenage girl left her well-loved copy of The Fault in Our Stars with a note. For the next dreamer, one Saturday, we hosted a book swap day. Families came with stacks of books. Parents chatted on the sidewalk. Kids sprawled on the grass, flipping through pages. The air smelled of grilled hot dogs. Someone brought lemonade. And for a moment it felt like the neighborhood I'd always wished for. Even as the HOA seethed, the library was quietly uniting people. But the HOA wasn't done. A new certified letter arrived, stamped in red. They claimed the library violated structure uniformity and architectural standards. They threatened daily fines until it was removed. Richard himself knocked on our door one evening. His voice was dripping with mock concern. "Mr. Turner, these fines will pile up. A lien could cost you your home. Do you really want to lose your house over a box of books?" I stared him down. "Do you really want to be remembered as the man who banned children from reading?" He smirked. "History doesn't remember the rule followers. It remembers the troublemakers." And then he turned and walked away. For the first time, I felt real fear. Could we actually lose our home? That night, Claire and I argued. She wanted to protect the kids. I wanted to stand my ground. The fight ended with silence heavy in the house. But then, something shifted. I went back to the bylaws. Page after page of dense legal language. And there it was, contradictions. The rules allowed temporary decorative structures, holiday inflatables, yard sales, seasonal displays. I'd seen neighbors with giant Halloween skeletons, Santa Claus blow-ups, even a 10-foot inflatable turkey. None had been approved. None were fined. So why was our 2-foot library targeted? I printed photos of every holiday display in the neighborhood. I documented every violation notice we'd received. I added every thank you letter from neighbors. I built a binder, thick, heavy, undeniable. And then I started talking to people. What I discovered shocked me. The Johnson family had been fined for installing a wheelchair ramp for their elderly mother, not in harmony with community design. The Lopez's were fined for Christmas lights, too bright. A teenage boy had been forced to take down a lemonade stand. The HOA wasn't protecting our community. They were crushing it. I realized the library wasn't just our fight. It was everyone's fight. And slowly, people began to join. One neighbor signed a petition. I started. Then another. Soon a dozen. Parents offered to speak out. A retired lawyer down the street offered free legal advice. And one elderly neighbor, Mr. Harris, brought Sophie a weathered copy of *And of Green Gables. He pressed it into her hands. "I read this when I was your age. Your library deserves it more than I do." Sophie clutched it like treasure. That night, she painted stars and hearts on the roof of the library. "Protection," she explained. For the first time, I felt hope. One Saturday morning, Claire woke me up with her phone in hand. Her eyes were wide. "Daniel, we're in the news." A local journalist had seen our online petition. The headline read, "HOA orders family to remove free book box for kids." The article described Sophie's rainbow-painted library, the fines, the harassment. It quoted me saying, "We just want to share books with our neighbors." By noon, the story had spread like wildfire. Facebook shares, Twitter hashtags, angry comments. Teachers, librarians, and parents across town were outraged. Comments poured in. "What kind of HOA bans books? This is petty, cruel, and shameful. Stay strong, Turner family. We're with you." That afternoon, news crews parked on our street. Neighbors gathered around, some holding books in the air like protest signs. Kids stood in front of the library with handmade posters. "Let's read." Books, not rules. For the first time, Richard Green was on the defensive. He released a stiff statement. "The HOA has regulations to maintain community standards. Unauthorized structures cannot be tolerated, regardless of purpose." It only made him look worse. Something incredible happened. Strangers from other neighborhoods drove in, dropping off boxes of books. Parents brought their children just to visit Sophie's library. A retired teacher donated hundreds of paperbacks. Every day, the library overflowed. People left notes of encouragement tucked between pages. One simply read, "Keep fighting. Stories matter." The petition exploded. Dozens of signatures turned into hundreds. Even some HOA members quietly signed it, slipping their names in with a nervous glance over their shoulders. Our small act of kindness had become a symbol. Kindness versus control, joy versus pettiness. But Richard wasn't done. Days later, another certified letter arrived. This one was harsher than ever. Failure to comply will result in further legal action, including but not limited to property liens and potential foreclosure proceedings. Claire's hands shook as she read it. "Daniel, They're threatening to take our home. For a moment, I wavered. Was I putting my family in danger? But then Sophie marched into the room holding her binder of children's drawings. She spread them out like battle armor. Rainbows, hearts, stick figures holding books. She said with a fierceness I'd never seen before, "We can't let them win." And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. The neighborhood split in two. Some sided with us. Families brought meals, offered to babysit, signed the petition. Others muttered about troublemakers and bad publicity. Margaret, the HOA Karen, confronted me at the mailbox. "You're embarrassing all of us. Property values are dropping because of your circus." I shot back. "If property values are more important than children reading, then maybe you should move." Her face twisted in anger. "You'll regret this." But her words only steel my resolve. The story spread beyond our town. Local TV anchors debated it. Radio hosts ranted about the HOA that hates books. Online forums lit up with outrage. A national nonprofit that supports little free libraries reached out, offering legal assistance and publicity. Their message ended with, "Don't give up. This fight matters." Every night, more neighbors gathered by the library. They brought flowers, candles, stacks of novels. It became a vigil, not for something lost, but for something worth protecting. And then the HOA announced an emergency meeting. This was it. The community center was overflowing. Parents, kids, reporters, even strangers filled the seats. Some stood in the back, holding signs, "Save the library." Books belong to everyone. Richard sat at the front, gavel in hand, jaw tight. He pounded the table. "Order. This meeting is about one issue, the unauthorized structure on Mr. Turner's property." I stood, binder in hand. My voice shook at first, but grew stronger. This isn't about a structure. It's about community. It's about children discovering stories. It's about neighbors connecting. If that's against the rules, then the rules are broken. I laid out every photo of inflatable Santas, giant skeletons, pink flamingos. None fine, none removed. I read letters from neighbors whose lives were touched by the library. Richard sneered. "None of that matters. Rules are rules." And then Sophie, my 10-year-old daughter, walked up. She held the weathered copy of and of Green Gables Mr. Harris had given her. Her small voice filled the room. "This is our library. It makes people happy. Please don't take it away." The room went silent. Then one by one, people stood. Parents, teachers, kids. A retired neighbor raised his cane and declared, "If kindness is against the rules, then it's the rules that must change." Applause erupted. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras flashed. Under pressure, the board members whispered among themselves. Finally, one announced, "The board votes to rescind all fines. The little free library will be allowed to remain, and the bylaws will be revised." The room exploded with cheers. Richard slammed his gavel and stormed out, his face red with fury. Weeks later, he resigned. The library stayed. Sophie painted new words across the rainbow-striped roof. Books belonged to everyone. Neighbors kept it full. Families built more libraries down the street. Children ran from one to the next like explorers on a treasure hunt. Claire smiled more. Liam bragged that his comics were now famous. Sophie glowed with pride every time a stranger stopped to browse. The binder of evidence now sits on a shelf in our living room, not as a burden, but as a reminder. Sometimes you have to fight for joy, because this was never just about a wooden box. It was about proving that small acts of kindness matter, that power can be challenged, that even the strictest rules can bend when enough people stand together. And every time I see a child smile as they pull a book from that library, I remember the moment Sophie asked me, "Do they hate books?" Now I can finally answer. No, they don't hate books. But sometimes people forget what really matters. And sometimes it takes a painted wooden box to remind them. That's how our little free library defeated an HOA.